This is why you died.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our second ever episode of This Is Why You Died, a brand new horror podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Syrian Dangerous. That's Ryan Ross. That's Dan Marshall. We are here today to discuss one horror movie. And that, of course, is Dan's selection this week. The way our horror podcast works, if you're just joining us, is that we draw cues, we draw prompts out for ourselves, and then we have to pick a movie based on that. We all have to watch it and come back and talk about it. And Dan, what did you draw last week?
I drew Black and White.
That was your cue.
That was my cue, is Black and White. And that could go many different ways. I could go with a black and white horror film. Maybe I could have went Psycho, or I could have just gone with who knows what. But I decided to go with one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's always in my top 5. The reason that it draws from black and white is that the killer in this movie always wears black and white. Ghostface, also known as the killer from Scream, is the movie that I chose.
And what did you think about that, Ryan? What did you think about his selection of Scream?
Well, so I'll be honest, I hadn't seen Scream. We had a whole discussion about this actually off podcast. I thought I'd seen Scream, and what I'd seen was Scary Movie. And we had a whole discussion about this before we started the podcast, but I'd never seen Scream, but I'm very familiar with Ghostface. As a gamer, I play Dead by Daylight, and Ghostface is featured in Dead by Daylight as one of the killers. And obviously Ghostface has been around a very long time. He's become kind of like a pop icon in his own right. And so I was very familiar with who Ghostface was, but I didn't know anything about the premise or the actual contents of the film itself. So this was exciting for me because I had never seen it before.
So you were brand new to the movie and the franchise. Dan, you said it's one of your favorite horror movies, if not your favorite. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Wow. So, all right. So right there, that's a huge disparity. And then, of course, there's me.
What do you think? I just want to know.
I am not a big fan of Scream. I actually think that it was the death of horror for about 10 years as a result of that.
Wow.
So we've got
big take.
We've got 3 very different perspectives coming into this movie. And this is before we even watched it. Ryan, you hadn't seen it. Dan, it's your favorite horror movie. And me, I can't stand it.
The death of horror?
It ruined horror for nearly a decade.
I cannot wait to hear this. Oh my gosh, for a decade.
For nearly a decade.
Okay, so we will get into that. And then I want to know, I got to know. So you guys got to stay tuned. I got to know what the movie is that turned it back around for you. Because if this ruined for a decade, then something came out a decade later that turned it all around.
There were good horror movies hiding amidst all the crap that came out as a result of Scream. And actually, I think the Japanese and the French were what brought us back from the brink.
Here comes the glasses. We'll get it. The Japanese and the French.
We will. You know me well. We will get into all of that as we go into the podcast. But let's start off with our history with Scream before we get into dissecting the movie. This episode is about Scream, the very first Scream from 1996. What is our personal history with Scream is what I want to start with. Obviously, we've all now seen it. Now, Ryan, you finally have watched it.
That's true.
So we know. So Ryan,
actually watched
it. We know your history now. You know the character Ghostface from Dead by Daylight, the video game, and from just being a pop culture icon. But until now, you haven't seen the movie at all.
Correct. Or any of the franchise at all.
None of the franchise. So you came in completely form. Right. You've seen Scary Movie, so you're aware of the tropes.
Yes.
Of the franchise. Okay, well, Dan, this is your favorite movie, your favorite horror movie. Give us your history with this movie.
The favorite, but it's up there.
Okay,
it's up there. Okay,
it's up there. So what's your history with the movie? Where did you first see it? Why did it become one of your favorites?
This could take the whole hour because I just like to blah 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 about it, but I won't.
In brief, yeah.
In brief, in brief, this goes way in the way back time machine. I was a freshman in high school, and I was reading the newspaper, which was it did a story about this upcoming movie, Scream. So like already right there, I date myself that I was reading a newspaper, and this was high school, so it was a long time ago. And so I was reading about how the guy that created Dawson's Creek was teaming up with Wes Craven, and I was already a horror lover, so I was like, okay, this is interesting. What's going on here? And so I was reading about, and there was hyping up. It was all PR, and I just remember the weekend that it came out. It was just like an event. Like everybody in town was going to go see it. There was hype around it. Something that we don't have these days, I feel like, when it comes to going to the movies, which is sad to say. But when it came out and I saw it for the first time, I think it floored me because there was so many things happening in it that I felt were just so fresh and new. For so long, we had a lot of teens, most teens in horror movies were treated like idiots. Like, of course they're going to get killed. Look at how they're talking. They're idiotic. They have stupid lines. They're just like, all they want to do is drink, have sex, and all that. And in this movie, yes, they still do that. But what I liked about this movie and watching it for the first time as a teenager was that I felt like they put smart characters on a screen. These were like real kids. I mean, yes, they were not teenagers, but they had an intellect. They were talking more like me a bit. Like, they weren't just like stupid catchphrases just to get killed. They were like real characters with real backstories, with like real feelings, going through their own drama and then having to face these horrific murders. And so that's what really jumped out at me. And then, of course, being a horror fan, I love that it was so meta and it was analyzing itself as it was going through it. Like, it was calling attention all the tropes that people knew but nobody really talked about until this movie like brought it to pop culture. The whole like, I'll be right back, and like, don't check outside, all those things that we all know and laugh about like on a weekend night when we're watching a movie with our friends. This brought it to light of like, look, we're analyzing horror movies and then we're bringing that trivia and turning it into this like, really fun and scary slasher. So it's like, it's a new form of slasher that's analyzing itself, having fun with itself, but also had a really good storyline, had a lot of cool twists and turns that I didn't see coming. And another thing that I will say is that I grew up on Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo was like a gateway to horror, always with these scary things that always ended up being, a kill, like, oh, let's pull off the mask.
Yeah.
The man under the mask. This married that idea that I grew up with loving, the whodunit, with the slasher, which I already loved, Halloween being probably like my favorite horror movie, and it mixed them all together with an iconic horror movie director. And I felt like it reinvented the horror genre and kicked off, this franchise that, I think that a lot of people have faults with some of the movies, but I personally think that every single one of those movies is fun to watch on its own as its own thing, and that none of them are like bad. I think you can look at other franchises like a Halloween movie. You can look at, I see Ian's face. I wish you were recording this because he's looking at me like, oh my God. But like, as bad a rap as number 3 is, Scream 3, it is a little more goofy and it is very more Scooby-Doo-ish, but they're still fun to watch. And so it's taking all these things that I love, which is just like analyzing horror, talking about horror, Scooby-Doo whodunit, slashers, and it married it into this like really fun, exciting horror movie that is always just like a blast to put on, and gave us Sidney Prescott, and I think she's a great character.
So now wait, you said you've watched it in high school in the theater. Did you
theater
alone or with a bunch of friends? Like, do you have a bunch?
I think with friends and family or something, like family friends. Yeah, like, but it was I think like a group, and it was just a fun experience. Like, I've seen most of them in theaters. I've tried to make it a point to go see almost all of them if I could in theaters, and it's like it's a good experience each time with the jumps and the twists and the turns that they seem to create. So that was my first kind of experience with Scream, and instantly loved it and wanted to watch it again and again, and still do every year.
Wow, you watch it every year?
Yeah, of course. I try to watch. I put on the franchise here and there, but especially like when the last Scream, when Scream 7 came out, I watched them all leading up to it just to kind of get the feel for it. But yeah, I love putting them on. 1 and 2 are great.
The Star Wars nerd of Scream nerds, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know why I'm not wearing it, but I have a Ghostface shirt, and I should be wearing it right now.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
So wait, was this your first or second time watching it this year?
Oh, this was my probably second. I think I put it on earlier in the year just because I wanted to. Sometimes it's one of those like, oh, let me just put on Scream because it's fun to watch type of movies.
Wow.
But I will also admit to something else, which I told Ryan offhand. I didn't have a chance to even watch it again for this podcast. I was so busy.
So you didn't need to.
I didn't need to. I rewatched the opening because I love the opening.
Right.
So I just wanted to get the feel again, but I didn't need to because I've just seen it so many times.
We can give you a pass. We can give you a pass on how you watch it. Yeah, he watches it every year. That's like telling Stephen Colbert to reread Lord of the Rings before an interview. It's like,
Exactly.
no,
he's fine.
He's good. He's good.
Also,
all right. Well,
I love Stephen Colbert. Shout outs to Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
Stephen Colbert, absolutely.
What a
All
gem
right,
of a
so
man.
that's heavy. I don't know if I can follow that. I mean, I really can't. And the only thing that I can say is that I'm going to date myself as well because, like Dan, I also watched it in the theater. I was also a freshman, only I was in college.
You guys aren't gonna like where I was in 1997.
No, how were your Huggies at that time, by the way? Yeah.
Continue.
No, I saw it in the theater too. I went with a couple of friends, and all of us horror fans. I had a group of friends where we lived with the college we went to was right near a cemetery.
Oh.
And so we actually would like come up with like mental exercises like, okay, when the zombies start coming back from this cemetery, what's our plan? Where do we go to get the tools that we will need to decapitate these zombies and sever their heads? Like we had our whole escape plan planned. So I was with a horror crew watching this movie, and we went and saw it. And I'm not going to lie, we were all very entertained in the moment. Like it is an entertaining movie. There's no way to say anything otherwise. It has a ton of great fun energy. You know, as you said, it's exciting, lots of twists and turns. The actors all have a lot of energy in every scene. It's while it's still retreading a lot of the cliches of slasher movies in specific in the horror genre, it also is doing something that had never really been done before at that time. It was telling you what the rules were and then surprising you as to whether it would break them and kind of winkingly go, yeah, we're doing that, or it would actually do the rules and make them actually happen, or it would break them and surprise us. This kind of the surprise as to which it would be in any given scene was part of what made it so unpredictable and so exciting. But I mean, we're going to get into I think our thoughts on it in a second, but that's my experience of it is going and see it in the theater and being like, okay, yeah, this was a good slasher. Like it didn't really immediately blow my mind. I was kind of like, that was fun. You know, it was good. I didn't really hey, I didn't hate it. I didn't absolutely love it. I was like, it's a good fun horror movie. It wasn't until years later that I started looking back on it and going, oh, that's Scream.
I was about to ask because it sounds like if you enjoyed it so much before and now you don't, what caused that shift?
Well, we're gonna actually, so let's actually move forward to the next part, which is now here we are having watched it again, or in the case of Dan over there, he's never stopped watching it.
Yeah.
So here we've watched it again. For me, I'm coming back to it. It's the first time I've watched it in probably over 15 years since I've seen it. It's been a long time since I sat down and forced myself to swallow this bitter pill. And of course, it's Ryan's first time ever seeing this. So this is I'm excited to get into describing what Ryan's first time reaction was, what my response to it was as well. I mean, Dan, I wanted to start with asking you, kind of, what your opinion was watching it this time, but you didn't watch it. You're watching it constantly.
Yeah.
And we kind of, I think, gotten an idea of where you are with this movie, what you like about it and what really drew you to it.
Here, we'll throw one bone. What's your favorite part?
Yeah, there you go.
What's my favorite part?
Your favorite part. Give us your favorite.
I mean, everybody's gonna say it, but it's the opening. The opening is I will admit that that there was a movie that came out 3, 4, 5 years earlier called When a Stranger Calls 2, that pretty much had this opening. Now, Wes Craven came in and perfected it, I think, but I think everybody was like, wow, this is like incredible. Nobody's ever done this before. But like 5 years before, there was this movie. And if I would recommend anybody that has not seen that, When a Stranger Calls 2, just watch that opening sequence, especially if you're a fan of Scream, because that opening sequence is just like, oh my gosh, there's so much of Scream in here. But that opening is just so iconic. But I wanted to rewatch it again. So I rewatched it again for the podcast because I really wanted to see and really like look at it through a filmmaker's lens. I noticed that as we're following Drew Barrymore in the house, which is fantastic that they have this phone call that progressively gets creepier and scarier, but you're kind of being drawn into it and you're traveling through the house with her. So you're getting the geography of the house because that's going to become important when she needs to escape. So you're understanding where she's at in space so that you can be right along with her when she needs to get out of there. So you're like, okay, go to the front. Wait, no, the back, go this way. And then while she's like traveling around the house and popping the popcorn, I was looking behind her because I was like, maybe they were in the house at some point and I never saw it, but like they light the back of the house and the windows so perfectly where you're like looking, you're like, is that somebody? Is somebody back there? You're constantly looking behind her because it's so well lit and so much shadow that I was just like, okay, this is great. And then the dialogue in between is just so fantastic, just like her, you know, kind of flirtation and then this killer just like getting scared. It's just everything is so well crafted for that. And then, I mean, of course, because they promote her on the cover of the poster and you're going in 6 months thinking, okay, Drew Barrymore is a star. We're going to watch Drew Barrymore like trying to survive this thing. And then they kill her off in the first scene. You're just like floored. You're like, wait, what is this movie now? And who am I following? And like, and so that's why I just love that opening because I can rewatch that over and over and over again. And the camera placement and the way that they turn the camera into a Dutch angle at certain points and leave the camera as she leaves the scene. And like, there was one thing I noticed where after that first phone call, they don't show her hang up the phone. They keep the back door out of focus. And that's where she's going to watch her boyfriend die. That's where the crash is going to happen. That's where she's pretty much going to get stabbed. Like everything centers around that space that they put askew and out of focus in the very front of the movie. And I was like, man, they really thought about that opening. And so that's why I just freaking love that part of the movie.
You know, it's funny because I have an admission to make. So that opening, like what is 10, 12 minutes?
Yeah, something about there.
With Drew Barrymore. And you're right about the lighting. There is actually one part you can see her boyfriend out on the porch before they reveal he's there. If you look closely, they have a whole lot of little details that are smart, like the fact that she's got that blue screen at the beginning of a VHS on the TV at the time, because Wes Craven wanted to symbolize you're at the beginning of a movie right now. You're about to watch a movie. He has a lot of little nods like that. And actually, that was one of the first things I believe that they shot before that sequence. Bob Weinstein, Harvey's brother, Harvey's not his evil brother, who was the producer of Dimension
on
film.
the film.
Bob primarily, but Bob was the one who had his hands on. Harvey didn't have anything to do with the movie. It was actually Bob who greenlit the film for Dimension because Dimension was kind of like his baby, whereas Harvey's Miramax. And Dimension, I mean, I'm getting off on a tangent here. Dimension Films is a pretty cool imprint of movies. They also did like From Dusk Till Dawn, Hellraiser, everything after 3, The Crow, Spy Kids, Bad Santa, Faculty, Existence.
Wow.
The Others, Wolf Creek, and they also did the Scary Movie franchise. They pillaged their own stuff. But anyway, getting back to that scene, that was the scene where up until that point, Bob Weinstein didn't think Ghostface was going to be scary. He thought the mask was goofy. He didn't think that it was intimidating at all. And that was when they showed him the dailies of it, he's like, it doesn't look scary. They pieced it together, and they pieced that together before they pieced together the rest of the movie and showed him the edited together cut of that opening scene. He said, what the fuck do I know about dailies? This is amazing. Keep the mask. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's history. And it's funny because I remember at the time that mask was in stores before the movie was out. That was actually an existing Halloween mask from Fun Times or Fun Games or something.
They still own the rights to the character now.
Yeah. They have a part of it. Like they had to pay. They made money off of making this weird little mask that's kind of like Edvard Munch and a little bit like Betty Boop cartoon and whatever its basis is. But here's my confession: that opening of Scream, the very first Scream with Drew Barrymore, is the best 10 minutes of film that Wes Craven ever directed. It's a flawless scene. To me, it's like a short film of how to build tension, how to direct a horror film. It's phenomenal. It really is incredible. And as you said, Dan, the fact that they kill off Drew Barrymore so quickly, which itself is an homage to Psycho, where they kill off Janet Leigh right early after promoting the movie based on her. That's a huge giveaway that this movie's unpredictable, and it makes you uneasy for the rest of the movie. It's like a Game of Thrones moment where you're like, okay, anyone's fair game now. Even though it's all pretty predictable from there, it's still like, for the people for us who watched it at the time, we were like, you did what to Drew? She was the biggest star in the movie. By far. She was originally supposed to play the Nev Campbell character. And she had a scheduling conflict. So she ended up she's like, oh no, it'd be really be cooler if you kill me off in the first part of the movie. And now it's iconic and it's brilliantly done. I hate to say it. What did you think of that opening there, Ryan, now that you saw it for the first time?
Here's the deal. It's going to be hard for me not to bridge into the rest of the movie because I've got opinions. But the thing is, I'll be honest, Well, let's do it. Let's go straight into the rest of it. We know Dan's. I want to hear some more about Dan's opinion. We'll get some more of my opinion. Let's get your experience of this movie. Yeah. What did you think? What did you think about it, starting with the opening scene? I'll be honest, I actually really enjoyed this movie, with a slight asterisk of I also think this movie really casts a lens on all the things that I don't like about horror as a genre. And it's really fascinating to me that it managed to do both. Because to Dan's point, it was entertaining, it was fun, like it did keep me guessing, not having seen it. And also, like, as we said, I know very little about Ghostface. Because I've seen Scary Movie, I knew that there was a trope that and that I knew like tangentially about the franchise that more than one person wears the mask. But I thought it was movie to movie. So it was still a surprise to me at the end when two people were the culprit in one movie, because I thought it was separated. I thought it was like a legacy thing. So it did keep me guessing of like, is it the dad? Is it the boyfriend? Like they did manage to keep it enough that I was still like, it has to be one of these things. And they're like kind of playing some of them more obvious than others, but they would switch it so often that I was like, I'm in. Like
they throw red herrings at you right and left in this movie.
Oh, it's
intentionally, because when you watch it again, you realize how freaking obvious it is that it's Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard.
Yeah.
Because there's actually there's the scene where they're all sitting next to the fountain and they're literally like looking at each other like, dude, stop giving it away. The way that the actors do it, they're like looking at each other like Skeet like, dude, shut up with the liver jokes.
The VHS store too.
Yeah. Oh my God. They're so obviously creepy in that once you realize that they're the actual killers.
But by contrast, the dad's not there to defend himself. So the absence of the dad is suspicious enough that he's still in the mix. And then of course the police are adults, as they have to be. And it does have kind of a little bit, I'm going to disagree with Daniel slightly. I do think that some of the teens do some very dumb teeny stuff along the way, but it's not as bad as it could be. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I think that the opening scene, I think the opening scene's really well done. I thought it really set the tone for the movie. I do think that I like that it got to the action very quickly and the movie started strong. I do feel like the first 30 minutes is paced almost a little too fast in terms of it doesn't feel, at least to me, it didn't feel like it felt kind of railroaded a little bit of we have to get here, we have to get here, we have to get here, we have to get here to establish all this stuff. And then the pacing of the movie kind of settles once you get past, I think about the boyfriend leaving the bedroom and the dad leaving, etc. Everything prior to that point felt really we got to get going. We got to get to the next thing. I think the only thing that bothered me about the opening scene, and hate me if you want, but the only thing that bothered me, and they did this throughout the movie, and I do think that it was a cool technique film-wise, but it was just a little bit too fish-eyed. They would literally fish-eye things right before bad things are about to happen, which to a point, along with Dutching, yes, you make the audience uncomfortable. Yes, you get them to a point where they kind of subconsciously anticipate it. And I'm not sure if it was probably as noticeable 20 years ago as it is on higher definition screens and stuff now that we have a lot more detail. But the edges of the screen warping nowadays was a lot more noticeable to me in the moment. And then I was like, okay, that's almost distracting level fisheye.
Interesting.
I noticed it twice too on this rewatch. It didn't, I won't say it bothered me, but it was very noticeable.
Yes.
I think I even made a comment oh man, Wes loves his wide angles in this.
Yeah.
His wide angle lens is pushing a little bit too much.
And the fact that it's only used for specific shots makes those shots really kind of pull you out of that sequence, I think.
Interesting. Okay, I have to rewatch it that way.
It became a new trope to you, in other words? Like, you're like, oh, it's a wide-angle lens. Someone's about to get it.
Literally, the fisheye thing, I was like, so the next shot, something's bad is about to happen. Which, like, you can kind of know with a little bit with, like, the pacing and stuff. But, like, I do think that was a little bit too much of a giveaway.
So, actually, I had a question, too, kind of speaking of tropes. Because, okay, so you are, we kind of jokingly say this, but you were the horror virgin of the show here. Correct. And this is a movie that really is based on kind of knowledge of the horror genre. Correct. I mean, and there's a billion references in this movie to other horror movies, either verbally or visually or whatever. I mean, I counted off the top of my head. You have Nightmare on Elm Street, obviously because of Wes Craven. Friday the 13th.
Was the janitor Robert Englund? Was that?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, it wasn't Robert. No, Wes Craven. It was Wes Craven.
Okay. It was Wes, but he was dressed as Freddy.
I was like, that's clearly a reference. I just don't know if that's the actor. But
there's a couple of references, like to Nightmare on Elm Street, like only the first one's good, the rest of them suck.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Conversation about a couple.
It's a movie directed by Wes Carpenter or whatever she says. But like, I was picking up stuff like they reference Prom Night verbally. They reference Town That Dreaded Sundown verbally.
Friday the 13th.
Texas Chainsaw. She calls Skeet Ulrich. Randy calls him Leatherface at one point.
Correct.
Psycho, where Skeet Ulrich says we all go a little mad sometimes. At one point, the opening is a direct reference to both Black Christmas and, as you said, When a Stranger Calls, the Carol Kane scene with the phone call tragically getting weirder and weirder. Skeet Ulrich says I was watching The Exorcist. They reference The Howling, Cujo, including the house that they have. I believe the house she's staying in was opposite the hill from where they filmed Cujo.
Wow.
Real quick, total tangential footnote. Can we talk about how every single house in this movie is both gorgeous and has like an uninterrupted view of the sunset? Like,
it's true.
What are the cost of the properties in this film? That's
Sonoma County, actually.
Okay, well, good to know. That
Wine
was
country.
Completely and utterly noticed that.
Very nice.
Like multiple shots of like, this place is beautiful. Anyway, end of tangent. Continue.
It is beautiful up there. But anyway, so my point is they reference a ton of movies. And my question was going to be like, Ryan, did these references land at all? Or were you like, how did you?
I recognized a third of the things you said. And like, here's the thing. It's like, what's interesting is I do come from a production background, right? Like I speak the language of like Dutch angles and like fisheye lenses. And like from a production standpoint, I know a lot about how these productions work and also like how certain production choices play into filmmaking or tropes in different genres. However, I'm not familiar with the actual events or like canon of the genre. So what's funny is, to your point, it's very meta. It lists the rules. And like, yes, I know the whole like having sex in a horror movie is a bad thing. Like, I did not know that like virgins tend to be invincible. I did know based off of, I've seen Cabin in the Woods, that like they tend to be like one of the last ones. I did not realize that they generally just don't die. In that, the one nerd who works at the VHS store that is like explaining all the rules and showing, they're watching the
Randy.
So Randy, as they're watching
Jamie Kennedy.
they're watching the Jamie Lee Curtis film at the party. I couldn't tell you which one it was. It was Halloween.
Halloween 1. Yeah, you couldn't tell us which one.
I couldn't tell which one it was. But you know what's funny is I think I've seen Halloween years ago.
Well, now you've partially seen it again because it was playing in the background there. Yeah.
But I did not realize that Jamie Lee Curtis, outside of I knew that she was associated with Halloween, I did not realize that she was in more horror movies. Because I know her. And they clearly referenced that, but that was news to me because and again, if we're going to date ourselves here, the earliest movie that I remember Jamie Lee Curtis in was Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan. I know Jamie Lee Curtis in the later stage of her career, and this was all news to me. I lived for but yeah,
I'd say that's her mid-career because it feels like she's in her like new later career now. She's doing so much.
Incredible and Everything Everywhere All at Once.
So Jamie Lee Curtis, as far as horror movies, and I'm gonna see if I can get them all, but I believe it was Halloween and The Fog back to back for John Carpenter. She was in Prom Night, which they reference quite a few times in this movie, and they have a lot of similarities to, including
Carrie as well.
Carrie, she wasn't in Carrie. She was in Terror Train. Then she was back for Halloween 2. So all of those were kind of her like horror movies. And then they referenced this in Scream 2, but then she was in Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. And she went bigger from there. And then she really hit it with A Fish Called Wanda in 88. And then True Lies. I think those were like all her, and well, maybe Blue Steel. But it was a while, but like there was about a 5 or 8 year period there where she was the horror movie chick. She was like one of the Scream queens.
Yeah, that was all news to me. But like the cool thing was the meta aspect of it was like I knew enough to appreciate it, but then I also knew little enough to learn from it at the same time, which was super cool. Of like I got a little bit of both sides.
So what you're saying is this was a good way to start our horror podcast.
Very much so. Although I did think it was ironic that like we started with like, I'll say episode 0, episode 1, right? We had our intro episode and we're like, Ryan doesn't like horror. And the first one we watched, I'm like, guys, I actually kind of liked the movie.
I'm going to say this is going to happen more than once.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
I hope that on this show we introduce you to a few movies that make you go, you know what? I don't hate horror. I just don't like specific kinds of horror.
But as I said, this also kind of casts a lens on some of the stuff I don't like about horror, right? Like, let's talk about the fact that there's 2 high schoolers wielding a knife, and
which happens,
and nowhere in the entire town, including the police officer, no one has a gun. Except for the police officer who has a gun and then doesn't use it and somehow gets jumped by a teenager with a knife. Like we're talking about like houses out separated in the woods and none of them have guns in the house.
Well, that is a little bit, I mean, if it is California, so at the time that was not unrealistic. If it was Wyoming, that would be...
Okay, fair counter. But, so we've got these 2 high school guys, right, that are running around, and as with most slashers, there's the chase sequences. They'd make a big deal of kind of the physical comedy of like the doors slamming and them getting stuck in stuff and them getting whacked, etc., right? And they have... Like, at no point are they bruised or they have no physical indication that they are like getting door slammed and kicked in the neck.
It's like Looney Tunes.
It's
very good point. That is a very good point.
It's full on like what are the Three Stooges level like pratfalls and shit. And these 2 guys are like, we're never gonna get caught. Like I just got kicked in the throat and my throat looks great. And I'm like, and also how messed up that they murdered this girl's mom. And then one of them's dating the daughter of the like.
They murdered the mom. Dude. He's dating the daughter, and one of the other ones was dating the chick they kill in the opening scene.
Murdered his ex because
it's if you really get down, like if you take this movie seriously and try to like break down like if this was real, it's really deeply fucked up. And these 2 guys, like it's actually kind of creepy to go back and watch it because Skeet really like if you were watching this the first time, I imagine. The Skeet Ulrich, it seems a little bit creepy, but maybe he's kind of like a weird James Dean, like I'm a little off high school kid. You know, he's a little needy and whatnot. But then at the end, you look back at him and you're like, no, he's a really toxic, entitled, psychopathic prick. Like, ew. Well,
it's funny because like, I'm going to give props to Matthew Lillard here. He sells the, I would argue Matthew Lillard kind of sells the movie in part for me. Like out of all of the roles, I think that he did the best job with his, and granted, it's very Matthew Lillard. It's very quirky. It's very out there. He does weird tongue shit, like whatever. Like it's very Matthew Lillard. But I'm used to seeing Matthew Lillard in kind of quirky, odd roles. I had not seen Matthew Lillard in kind of like a quirky, kind of douchey role. And that was a twist that I hadn't really like seen him in. But
I need you to tell me a movie that he doesn't have the quirky, douchey role.
Well, so I like in general, he's kind of quirky, odd. Like you like what's that Hackers movie? He's like really weird. Like I'm used to the weird angle of Matthew Lillard, Shaggy, the like whatever, like the off kilter kind of weird friend. Totally fits. I'd never seen him kind of be
Ghosts. Like. Oh wait, you haven't seen that?
I haven't. But like I've never really seen him be kind of like a jockey, like I'm the shit type character, right? I do think that is a relatable, like I can point to people I've met in my life that are the like douchey think they're the shit guy who are actually just kind of weird, quirky dudes. That all fit. And yeah, he's really dopey, especially I think towards the end of the movie. Like some of it was kind of like, okay, we're overselling how lacking this guy is in the upstairs. But I do think that he like really sold it for me. But yeah, like I do think plot holes kind of abound in general of like, they're in the party house with an entire group of people, and they're changing in and out of this costume, like going into the garage and stuff. Nobody spots them. There's a camera in the house. Nobody spots them. The fact that both of them have to have alibis constantly and are doing this in tandem, no one ever knows where they are, which admittedly is I think an older thing. Like that was probably
they almost get caught a few times when you've watched the movie again. Like they almost and also they're also like they're so obviously the killers the entire time.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a dumb luck thing for them. Which I got this time around. Like it seemed like they were getting away for most of the movie by kind of getting lucky on some of it.
Yes, agreed. And the other thing that bothered me was there are sometimes where they would sneak, and I'm like, Matthew Lillard is like 6'4". And like this other guy is like average size but not short, and like they like drop down on the side of the car, and she's like, where did they go? And I'm like, you can see, like, if you're in a car at a door, you don't lose sight of everything below the, like, there's stuff like that. Or like people, there was a lot of like somebody would open a door slightly and they'd somehow manage to get into the room. I was like, how are these people all just like their sight line is the size of their face? Like they have beams of vision, and anything below them, like all they have to do is Looney Tunes crouch down and they're clear.
So that brings up an interesting point, because while this movie does attack a lot of horror tropes and deconstruct them, it has a lot of horror tropes either left over or ones that it just kind of it has to go with just to make a horror movie work. And Dan, I kind of want to know what you think about that as the defender of this movie right now. Like, does it still work? Does it still work for you? I mean, obviously it still works for you, but like, I want you to explain why it still worked for you.
Here's the funny thing is, as I'm hearing you guys talk, is that I think because I've watched it every year, it's kept me in that frame of like just of that original feeling. And so part of me is thinking like, the next time I watch this, I should go in of like, okay, cut off the love, cut off the nostalgia that I have for this. Let me actually watch this and see if what I'm really watching is making sense. Because listening to you guys, I'm not denying it, because I'm not gonna. I personally am not gonna be like, no, you guys suck. No, it's a perfect movie, because listening to it, it does kind of sound. Well, I think that I'm sure there are faults, but again, like Ian said, is I think the stuff that you're talking about, the dropping and where did they go, are elements, especially of a slasher, that I feel like you kind of have to go with, because it just makes the scene so much more exciting to watch.
It doesn't work without it. And like, I agree with you, but that's one of my complaints with horror is that like, I know last time we said like, I'm a plot guy. And you guys were like, well, horror has plot. And like, to be fair, this one has a pretty decent plot of like how it all ties together. But also like this, like in terms of, I would consider things like that also to be part of the plot. These plot holes of like people just losing sight of shit that moves 3 feet away from them.
See, I would argue that's not a plot hole so much as like an unbelievable trope, like something where you're like, it takes me out of the movie. I don't believe that can happen. You know, I think actually, to the credit of Kevin Williamson, this is probably one of the tightest movies that he's written in terms of plot holes and having like a fairly decent explanation for a lot of the things that happen in it. There's not, I don't think, a lot of true plot holes that you can't somewhat easily explain with just a little dash of horror logic. But I agree that there's a lot of perhaps unrealistic or things that, you know, it takes a little bit of movie magic to kind of go with.
Yeah. And honestly, that's a fair take. And I will amend to say I disagree with a lot of the tropes that horror relies on, rather than say that I have issues with horror plot.
And as much as this movie did try to deconstruct a lot of the horror tropes, it just latently had some as well. That's the only way it could function still. And that kind of will lead me, ultimately, we'll get back to this, that leads me to why it kind of killed the genre for a while.
Honestly, I want to dig into that, because I'm really interested in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to know. I think that I've said here. I mean, I think we've said that of why I like love and still love this movie. So I want to hear your side, because I'm always open to understanding things differently.
So as we've mentioned, this movie is very meta. It's kind of what it's known for. It's what the franchise is known for. And it's actually to a point now where you go into a Scream movie expecting certain tropes that it itself has made up. You know, it has its own rules that it plays by. It's kind of its own subgenre of horror. But at the time, it was making a commentary on horror movies in general and slasher movies in particular. And Ryan, I don't know if you're aware of the subgenre of slasher, but it's a very,
I know the name. I know some of the like overarching stuff. I couldn't point you to too many outside of like, I know a lot of the classic horror movies are considered slashers. And
this movie pretty much references them all. Friday the 13th, Halloween, Prom Night, all the big ones. There's like a ton, a literal ton of other ones, a lot of them going back to Italian giallo films and that sort of thing. But there's a ton of slasher films, and there's a ton that were made between the 60s and the 80s. And so there was a lot of fodder to draw from, and Scream kind of drew from the most popular ones because they figured that's the ones people are going to know the most. Those are the tropes that are the most embedded. So let's make fun of those. Let's discuss those. Instead of kids that don't know what to do in these scenarios, let's have them know what a horror movie is. Horror movies that are perhaps unrealistic. Like, why is it always that the virgin girl is the final girl at the end? Why is it that, it always seems like when people, all these things that were happening in horror movies that at a certain point started to defy logic because they were happening over and over and over again. So it's pointing all of that out. It's being literally meta, and it's sometimes even meta about itself. So it's meta. It's super meta. And it's one of the reasons why it was so revolutionary at the time. But the problem with being meta and the problem with being revolutionary in the way that it was is it kind of put a capstone on the genre. You literally could not make an ordinary slasher movie after this without intentionally referencing the tropes of the genre. Otherwise, people were bored. They're like, no, Scream pointed it out. We all know it exists, right? Like Dan, you were saying that people didn't really like, it's like, oh yeah, those things exist. And this is the movie that made you go, oh yeah, they really do exist, huh? And it was something that, horror nerds talked about it. Oh, here it comes. He's drinking beer. There was a lot of Randys out there. I have been accused of being a Randy. But there was a lot of them that were like, they started to know the rules. It started to become a thing. After Scream, you couldn't do it.
So what you're saying is your complaint with Scream is that essentially it was the hand that pulled back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz.
Absolutely, exactly.
The levers.
Yeah, and once you do that, you can't go back. I mean, I don't think slashers have ever fully recovered from Scream.
On the flip side, doesn't that kind of by nature encourage the genre to evolve? Because by then you have to invent new levers, right? You have to
100%. It ultimately ended up being a good thing in the long run because like everyone who was looking for horror movies who had come up in the 80s and the 70s, which was like the golden age in a lot of ways, we had to look elsewhere for our horror. We started to realize that Japan, Korea, China were making insane, amazing horror films this entire time. We just had never seen them. Germany, France, there was so many good horror movies. And then, of course, France went off in the 2000s with the French New Extremity, and that kind of fed back into a lot of American horror after that.
I'm going to make a dinger to see if every episode we can get you to say French New Extremity, and then we're just going to do a ding.
I think it's one of the most important modern movements in horror. I mean, there's been, I don't know if there's a lot of them in the last 20 years that have been as specific and as impactful in terms of how it affected the American market specifically. Until then, until like the mid 2000s, the only real movement we had in the horror genre was from the Asian market, and also the beginning of the rise of the zombies, the rise of the zombie market. The vampire movies were still mostly dead. Even 30 Days of Night kind of bombed when it came out. They tried to do Dracula 2000, bomb, but 28 days later, and the remake of Dawn of the Dead came out, and that really started to push the zombie genres. They started to do remakes of old horror movies. Some were successful, some were not. And it wasn't until the mid 2000s that horror as a viable genre and a creative genre really recovered, because they had to find new things. They couldn't keep doing the same old thing because Scream killed it, and it pisses me off. It pissed me off at the time, and I think I still have a little bit of latent anger at it, even though watching it again, I have to admit, it's a really good movie.
So basically what you're saying is you don't like Scream because Scream did it too well. Scream did it so well that no one else could do it without somewhat being an echo of Scream.
So I think as much as Dan is starting to admit that there may be some flaws with his baby, I'm coming around and saying, I'm coming around and saying, you know what? I appreciate Scream a lot more now that I have a little distance from it. I'm not shaking my fist at it being on my lawn anymore. I'm able to appreciate it, I think, more in a historical context. And it is look, it's a meta movie. But there's a lot of really good meta horror movies. Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon is another one that takes on the slasher genre and just It's the only, I think, post-Scream slasher deconstruction that's actually worth a damn. That movie's incredible. Obviously, Zombieland was a zombie deconstruction when that it was the Scream of zombie movies. And then you had Cabin in the Woods is a fantastic horror deconstruction of the Cabin in the Woods genre, which is very associated with slashers.
Almost as horror as a whole. That one kind of puts its fingers in a lot of pies, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree.
Very excellent point.
Yeah. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is another good parody.
I mean, and I have to mention too that, like, I think a lot of people forget about it, but Wes Craven dabbled in this meta before Scream.
He did.
Not a lot of people saw it, but I enjoyed this one. But it was Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And Ryan, what was cool about this was that he was playing himself, and Sarah Landekamp, who plays the final girl, the main character in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, is playing herself as the actress. Her husband is involved in a new production. They're revamping Freddy, but this real new Freddy is actually coming into her reality. So it's like Wes Craven's playing himself, and as Wes Craven is writing the script for this new horror movie, it's also actually happening on the screen as you're watching it.
Okay, it's very interesting because, so again, I'm a gamer, right? And there is a horror game that is very popular that's called Alan Wake. And the premise of that game is that it is a horror writer who basically has forgotten. He finds a book that he's written that he doesn't remember writing, and as he's reading it, these events are happening around him, and he's living the events that he's written.
It's like a never-ending story.
Yeah. So but anyway,
before your time, Ryan. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but so I think he dabbled in that, and that's like the self-referential. But I do want to say that, like,
from Stranger Things. Thank you very much.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
Oh my god!
I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there. Continue.
I feel so old.
I will bat it back
when I talk to you sometimes. I will say though that, like, this, I think this is what the joy of this podcast is, and us coming together and talking about horror, is that we started even hitting play on this episode as I'm a diehard Scream fan. This thing was amazing. It was the best thing for horror. It like revamped it. But then after an hour or so, and even more of talking, we've got Ian now and Ryan picking it apart, and I'm like, oh, it might not be as perfect as I thought it was, but also maybe it did have some repercussions that I didn't really like even fully understand, because now that I think about it, there was a long period before we got some really good Asian horror that came in that I was like, oh yes, finally some new good stuff, what's actually pushing it. And I think you have it right, and we're still living in this studio system that is reactive.
I do a horror marathon every year, and I have to have at least 2 movies from every decade. Try to find a good horror movie from the end of the 90s. It's freaking impossible. There's so few of them.
It's hard. I totally see the point. I mean, now I'm going to rewatch Scream with like this new lens and like see how I still love it. Like, you're not going to not like me. I'm
always going to have a little bit of kind of old man angst about it. I'm always going to be a little bit salty about it. Like, it's not going to change. And I'm happy I watched it again. I'm happy I gave it another shot, and I found more to enjoy about it. I don't know when the next time I'm going to watch it is.
Now, here's the real question though, is we joked that the podcast is called This Is Why You Died, and that we had to point to a moment where, and the thing is, the main character survives. A moment. So, like,
I have the moment though.
Okay,
I have a moment. Okay, because I rewatched as I said before, I rewatched the opening to it, and I was like, okay, I really want to like kind of watch it. But there's a couple things I noticed. But one of the big things was because I wanted to find that moment of This Is Why You Died. I wanted to see what action she really took in that opening sequence, Drew Barrymore's character, of like, could she have survived that? And there's this moment right when she sees her parents pulling up where she like pauses, and I don't know why she paused. She didn't have to. She already paused seeing her dead boyfriend. I get that. Like, his guts are hanging out. Like, that's shocking. Yeah. That's traumatic. So yeah, you pause for that. But then she runs around the corner. She sees her parents. If I saw my parents, I feel like I'd be like, go faster. I'd be like, push. But she pauses, which gives that 3 seconds for Ghostface to come out and that's why she died. She
has a hole in her lungs and a hole in her neck.
No,
she can't speak because she can't get in the air.
No, she
to scream, and you're mad at her for not running more.
Before that scene, before she's stabbed, before she's even touched, he's already hit her through the window. Like she peeked up through the window, turned around, crashes through. That I don't know how he knew she was there.
I think he's got her in the chest by then, though. I think because she gets stabbed on the ground.
No, not there
the
yet.
Parents come here.
Not there yet. She
often have you seen this movie?
Again. I just watched it. Watched it before this.
You admitted you didn't watch it.
No, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched the opening sequence right before we recorded because I wanted to get in the mood of it again because it's so good.
You need to watch it again?
She pauses a second time, which allows Ghostface to jump out, and then she runs, but then he catches up and crashes and gets her. That's what she's paused.
I'm going to point out she does get stabbed in the chest before the car comes around the corner.
Thank you.
He chokes. No, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now.
We have live commentary.
Before that. It's before that. Go before that. Maybe even the car's probably down the road.
The car's coming down the street. It's down the street.
The car's on the street.
Down the street.
So the car's coming around the corner. I see it. You're right. The car's there.
No, he's not right. There's a car half mile down the street, and he's mad at her for not running out into the road.
She paused. I don't know why she paused.
Technically,
there's no reason to pause.
Technically,
she's pausing to make sure there's a car there because it's half a mile away. She can't see it. She doesn't have her glasses.
I don't know.
Technically, everyone's correct. So they're pulling into the driveway. The car's in motion. They're pulling in a driveway. She comes down the corner. She sees the car. He dives through the window while she's paused. So the car is within reasonable distance that she should not stop moving. But the parents aren't out of the car yet. So it's a little bit of
that's where the scare comes from. We as an audience don't know it's her parents. We're like, there's a car coming. She's going to stop and be like, what's going on?
But what I'm saying is that I'm not mad at her for pausing. We were trying to find out this is why she died. And that's why she died.
Literally. I thought you were mad at her. I thought you were saying,
I'm not mad at her. She almost made it.
Charlie's Angel. This is why you died.
Right there. She was right there.
You know, my submission was going to be, I was going to submit the two characters that I felt like I could really point to were the opening scene and then the T-name girlfriend of Skid or whatever his name is. The one who dies in the beer from throwing beer in the garage and then gets caught in the garage door. Which, by the way, to talk about
Rose
McGowan.
There's no way that a garage door would lift, like any garage door. If you try and lift it, it's just going to stop. It's not going to continue to lift you. And even
this is the '90s, Ryan. We had real garage doors,
real industrial garages that could lift a teenage grown woman.
This is before your little millennial safety precaution.
Because it's an industrial garage door, and also
they had to make garages safer because of this movie because people didn't realize how dangerous they were. So they just had to revamp all of them.
It's enough force to break her neck for sure. Also,
almost rip her head off. This is a John Deere garage opener right here. This thing is industrial. We're out here plowing fields with this thing, man.
I distinctly noticed that she was crawling out and she got to her waist, and then the next shot she was only shoulder deep, and I was like, "This is one of the horror moments that bugs me."
You cannot get Rose McGowan's chest outside of a pet door that easily, my friend.
Literally, she was to her waist. They showed her from the outside with her full tatas out of the garage door.
Don't get mad at the editor. Don't get mad at Rose McGowan.
That's fair. Anyway,
bless her heart for making it through there.
And also going to throw in the beer bottles would have been one of those points where people would be like, "Why are you soaking wet?" or cut from glass. But anyway, all of that aside,
he throws one and it breaks against his nutsack. He would not just be bruised; he'd be barely able to walk.
That's what I'm saying.
True. Good point.
I do think for her, the moment that she died is the moment that she let the door shut and didn't do they do this thing where the garage door only opens halfway for some weird reason and then it goes up all the way. I thought there was gonna be more significance to it only opening halfway. They were gonna I thought that he came in from the outside, not the inside. But
that whole scene is the most horror movie trope scene in the entire movie, where there's we're just gonna do an old school horror movie scene.
Yeah.
That scene was kind of silly, but clearly I would say the door shutting and also her opening the garage door for no apparent reason. I was going to point to for her of like, those are why you died. Those right there.
For some reason, I thought that was an accident. Like she was looking for the light and she hit the garage door.
She died because she did an Indiana Jones roll under the garage when it went halfway.
Yeah,
Like, come on, girl.
Or when he's not
you're
down,
wearing Johnny Depp's football shirt from Nightmare on Elm Street. You can get under there.
She throws beer and then hits the garage door opener to try and get. Yeah. Anyway, so that's her. And then I think I think the opening scene specifically, like, what if she just stopped answering the fucking phone? Like their whole gag is centered around like that they talk everybody through their murder. And it's like, if she just stops answering, do they even have fun with it anymore? Like they might just fuck off.
See, now you're taking all the fun out of the movie, man.
Yeah.
That's my point.
What if Han Solo doesn't want to take Luke to Alderaan?
You know what?
Oh, you have a movie then. Of course they answer the damn phone.
Oh my goodness.
Hold on, I want to point something out about this that I think is interesting, because I think, Ian, what we are also dealing with is somewhat of an age gap in terms of what makes this movie scary. Okay, now Ryan.
Okay.
When did you start having like phones and texting and messaging? How young were you in that? Teenager. But like as a teenager, it was kind of commonly always around you. You always had there's always been a phone, always ways to reach you or reach people when you needed to, right? Okay, so Ian and I grew up in the time where even in high school, we didn't all have our own cell phones.
This
we didn't all have our own
episode to go.
Yeah, before times. Yeah, but in the before times.
This is not how
I expected this episode to go.
I'm making the internet, before the cell phones.
I'm making an interesting. I feel like I'm making an interesting point. You can shut me up, but I feel like this is kind of just interesting to look at. Is that Ryan is younger. Ryan is kind of analyzing this movie as like being like, why didn't she do that? Like the cops, stop answering the phone, all this stuff. But what made the movie scary at the time was that they utilized the technology. That was a big point that Wes wanted to make in this, is that what's
like the
scary,
cell phone planning and stuff.
Yeah, but the cell phone, but just the fact that in other horror movies, there's always the killer's outside, like just stay inside, like they're outside or they're over here, like we know where they're at. With the phone call, it was like the killer could always find you. Like when he always like the call was kind of always around you, and you never knew where the killer was. So
his mobility was the new thing.
That was the new thing, the mobility to be anywhere at once, to watch you from anywhere that he could, and then also to just like, that was what really
metaphorically invade your space.
Well, it was instead of being like the killer is in the house, it's you don't know where the killer is and he's calling you on the phone, so you're locked down to somewhere.
But,
so that
admittedly though, like if you just after the first or second time when they're like, stop calling me, and they just like don't answer, like wouldn't that?
I'm sure they still come in and kill him. That's my thinking. I think they just like to have a little fun with it.
But I feel like it takes a lot of the gas out of it for them.
Well, but then you don't have a movie as well, and it's not as fun. So just have some fun with it, Ryan.
I enjoyed the movie. It was a good movie.
So I have to let me get my "This is why you died" moment out of here, and then we're gonna head towards the end of the show and wrap up. Mine is fairly straightforward. I've got to pick on Matthew Lillard here, because I mean, here he is. He takes a TV to the noggin, but before even that, he's weakened from loss of blood, and this is largely because he let a man named after his father's ejaculation stab him in the chest multiple times. And I'm sorry to Skeet Ulrich, but if your dad takes one look at you as soon as you pop out of your mom and remembers his ejaculation when he's naming you, then I really can't help you, my friend.
Ouch.
That is why Matthew Lillard died. He took a bunch of knives to the chest and was like, this is fun. I'm going to be quirky.
There was a small part of me that thought that the end of the movie was going to be that they turned on each other and she escaped.
They kind of half did, because
kind of half did. Yeah.
It's funny because we didn't even touch on this. There's a whole subculture talking about the homoeroticism latent in this movie between Skeet and Matt's character.
Interesting. I didn't know about that.
The fact that Kevin Williamson himself is actually gay, and he says he didn't have any like ulterior motives with having them be homoerotic together. You know, they're kind of like they're very physically intimate with each other in a lot of scenes. He actually said, Williamson actually said that he identified more with the final girl as a trope, and he's like, that's kind of what gay survival is feeling like a final girl at all times. And he said that's kind of the latent messaging that may have gotten in there subconsciously. He said it wasn't conscious. He's kind of happy that like later on that both the actors that found it and Wes let it happen, and you know, people have found some messaging in there. So and he and Don Mancini, the creator of Chucky, are the two kind of great gay horror icons of the modern era. James Whale, of course, being the old one. But it's cool to see him getting some recognition for that now, and people kind of finding that coding in the movie and saying, there it is, it's in there.
Wow.
And that's not the reason that that's not their motive, because they're gay, which was a thing for some horror movies, some slasher movies of the past. In this one, it was just that they were insane.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm gonna, while we're on the topic of the final house, one of the other things that I was like, it's only for the fact that it has to be that way, otherwise the thing falls apart, is there's a woman hanging from the garage door, and they have a whole scene where fucking 15 teenagers leave and
15 drunk teenagers who are really excited to get to their car.
From the garage door.
You're busy trying to go see your principal be strung up on the football field.
You're not
ones. Looking...
Because there's 2 points where people leave. There's one point where people are leaving casually when they're getting all set up with the news van and all that jazz. And then there's the point where like they get the phone call and all the people. I'll give you the ones rushing out to see the principal. They're distracted. But
do you pick apart your romantic comedies with this kind of fine-tooth comb?
Look, man, I come from production. Like you guys, I like I said, I'm a plot guy, and I'll give you that we may not call it plot. It might not be plot, but there are holes, and they bother me.
I'm terrified for you to see movies that came pre-Scream.
Yeah.
I'm serious. This is what I'm talking about. People becoming aware of the tropes of horror movies, starting to think about things like this because of Scream. This is why the genre was really hamstrung for a while, because it makes people think, hey, why this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. Before this, you're like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to go along with it because I'm here to, see a couple boobs and people get stabbed and whatever. Get jump scared.
When she falls on the truck, I was like, oh, and now she's going to look up and see her. Like you see the reasoning, and it has its moment.
Yeah.
Well, that's my point. She falls on the truck. Right. She falls on the ground. And she looks up, and there she is. It's like,
all right. So to wrap up the episode here, we've got Dan, who is starting to rethink his overarching love of Scream. We've got me, who is starting to waver on my hatred of Scream and actually kind of appreciate it more.
And it's me pushing my glasses up my nose.
And we got Ryan now, who's sitting here going, well, I don't think that she, 2 scenes back to back, she wasn't exactly in the same position. The orange juice was actually an inch off of where it was in the previous scene on the glass. So we've had a complete changing of the roles here.
Welcome to Musical Chairs with Ryan, Dan, and Ian.
Well, so this is our first episode. This is how the show is going to be going forward. So, gentlemen, any final thoughts on Scream before we set up the next episode here? The last words?
I'll just say that I will stand by and say that I love the Scream franchise. I love every single one of them. Even the third silly Scooby-Doo one in Hollywood, and even the fourth one. And the fourth one people didn't like at the time, but if you rewatch number 4, it was a good decade ahead of its time for how people want to be Instagram, YouTube famous, and what kind of links they'll go to. And having come from that past, it's not that far off. So just saying.
I don't know. Halloween H2O came before that. But that being said, Ryan, any final? Would you watch Scream again? Was this a movie that you would go back and watch it?
I honestly, I would give it, like, as much as I'm kind of shitting on aspects of it, like I really enjoyed the movie. It was a lot of fun. I'd give it like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. It was a lot. It was fun, enjoyable movie, and I didn't consider any of it to be particularly scary. It felt more jokey than horror-y. I find it hard to categorize as like a true horror movie, although I recognize that like historically it is. I think it also very much put a lens on like, okay, these are the things I have complaints about. But yeah, absolutely enjoyed it.
It's funny because it
was fun to watch.
Like the violence of it, it came. You mentioned the 2 killers, the 2 boys and the high schoolers with knives. It was pre-Columbine, and it had its share of controversy. There was imitator kills. There was guys who dressed up as Ghostface and killed their.
I did not know this.
They knew in high school. There was a lot of controversy, and even the movie itself touches on killers imitating movies. This movie, the 2 guys are imitating horror movies.
Yeah,
and there have been Scream imitators. So there's there has been controversy about the violence in the movie. The movie's original rating was NC-17. They had to take this movie back to the censors 9 times.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Bob Weinstein had to call up the MPAA personally and tell them, guys, you know, this is a comedy, right? Like, this is lighthearted. This is not gonna, there's violence, but it's not gonna come across that rough. And Wes Craven complained that the MPAA weren't giving him notes on specific shots, or like there's too much blood here or whatever. You know, they gave some stuff like, okay, the intestines can't wiggle or whatever, you know, like cut down this shot. But like they were sending him back with notes saying it's too intense. It's too intense. And he's like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Yeah.
And so this movie was actually considered for its time very scary, very violent.
Wild.
But
because it plays
it's not
campy and
anymore.
cheesy. And
Right.
like that, I enjoyed that. It was fun. I liked the meta aspect. It was cool to get to experience kind of like the origin of Ghostface. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Well, and you know what? I have to admit that I begrudgingly watched it, and I actually enjoyed it as well. So we all end the episode happy.
It was a good popcorn movie.
It is a great popcorn movie.
I think that's
Well,
the best
There
pin
we-
on it. It's a good popcorn movie.
It's a good popcorn movie, unless you leave the popcorn on the stove for too long and it starts to burn.
Yeah, a lot of product placement. The Jiffy Pop, the Jeep.
Makes me want to go eat
Jeep?
some Jiffy Pop right now.
Yeah, they big
actually.
old Jeep. All the police cars are big old Jeep branding.
Oh, right. You know what? I did buy
20,
those
hunting
stovetops
knife?
again a lot
Very-
after watching Scream.
Yeah,
I
a lot
bought
of
those
stovetop popcorn.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah, those
stovetop-
are fun.
Jiffy
stovetop
Pop's good
popcorn. As I was saying, $1.20 hunting knife.
Oh,
yeah.
Big seller. The
Wow.
Scream mask, big seller. Anyway,
I got the whole Scream outfit right after that too.
I
Yep, had it all.
totally believe that you did. You probably still have it in that closet behind you right now.
I wish I did, because I would be wearing it every Halloween this year and freaking out kids, but I don't know where it's at. So
You need-
maybe I
you
gotta
need
buy a new one.
Wearing it on a Sunday.
I've got
Yeah.
I've got good news for you. You can still very easily get it.
I know. Thank goodness.
There's
It's still a
probably
franchise.
a Spirit Halloween store somewhere near you.
That used to be a Ross Dress for Less.
Used to be a restaurant.
Yeah.
Or Sears.
Yes.
All right, boys. With that, we're going to wrap this show up. On the next episode, it is my turn. I've picked a movie based on the prompt Robert Englund. My prompt was the actor who played Freddy Krueger, which you would think would be an easy pick for what I'm going to make you guys watch, but it's not. It's not what you expect at all. I'm going to take Ryan down the rabbit hole on this one. And Dan, I believe that you have not seen this movie.
I have not seen this, so I'm excited to watch it for you to talk about. I have
I
not
don't
seen
have
it.
to be
I haven't
alone
seen it.
next time.
No.
I get to have someone in the
Yes.
boat with me.
You are not alone.
Come with me, boys, down the rabbit hole of horror. But that's going to be it for this episode. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you. Please come back and see us right here on This Is Why You Died. For Ryan and Dan, I am Sir Ian Dangerous. We will catch you next time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.